Week 2 of my Brett out of debt journey coming at you. A few things I want to cover this week. Just start right off the top. Still procrastinating like crazy. I'm waiting until the last minute. Hence the sitting in my car doing this video and whatever. I'm giving myself a break because this is shaming myself and hiding what's going on with me is perhaps a big part of why I'm in this situation. So I'm showing up. I'm doing it anyway. And even if it's in my car with bad lighting, last minute before I have to go into work, I'm still doing it. And that's what's most important. So that feels good. A few things I want to talk about. One is how I got into debt. I think that's a really important part of my story and something that doesn't get talked about a lot. I, like many other people, graduated from high school, received a partial scholarship to college for volleyball. I played volleyball at Ohio State, and by the guidance of my parents, totally well-intended, instructed me to take out student loans for the difference between what I was receiving in scholarship, with the agreement that my parents would pay them off eventually. I was an 18-year-old young man, trusted my parents completely, didn't think to analyze what it meant to take out debt. Student loans were this thing that everybody kind of did, and it was just, yeah. And through my father, the explanation my father gave me was, it makes more sense for us financially to borrow this money cheaply now and we'll pay it off later. I said, okay. I didn't look at any of the agreements. I signed my name somewhere when he needed or asked me to sign my name. And then upon graduation, I chose to go to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Again, my parents, with little communication, instructed me to take out student loans and that they would take care of it. Didn't give any thought to this, didn't feel responsible for this. My sister had also taken out student loans to go to college, and my father had eventually paid her student loans off, so I had no reason to believe that he wouldn't. When I finished acting school in LA, I began receiving phone calls from student loan companies that I had taken the loans out with, and my father instructed me to defer them as long as I could. He said, there are deferments, forbearances, just keep doing that, and when you can't do that any longer, then I'll start to make payments. I, again, didn't, in my 20s, I began to, late 20s, not feel great about this, and also started to feel like it was my responsibility, even though that was not the agreement that we had made. I didn't like the feeling of them hanging over my head, but anytime I would bring it up to my dad, he said, well, whenever it's time to make payments, I'll make payments. So again, delay, not handle things in the moment. That is a big part of my family story, and my family story with finances. To give a small example of my family's relationship to money, my parents purchased their home when I was born in 1983 for $150,000. When my father passed away in 2017, so 34 years later, they owed, not sure, roughly $450,000 on a 34-year-old $150,000 home. Continued to refinance, taking money. There was no dialogue around money in my home. Budgeting or saving or investing were not things that were a part of the conversation. It was, my father had a high enough income that there always seemed to be money, but I always felt poor. It was a very poor mindset. It was react, not plan. And I think that's many people's relationship to money. As I'm learning, it's not the healthiest, and not a way that I want to live anymore. So that's a little bit of background, and again, I'll continue to share stories. As it relates to my student loan situations, so when my father turned ill, he was diagnosed with cancer, and I had a very difficult conversation with him. I said, I was under the understanding that you and mom were going to take care of my student loans. Is there a plan for that? To which he said, no, there's not. Sorry, roughly. And that, I know I said I had started to become aware that I wanted to take care of them, but that was a very clear moment of nobody's going to save you on this. This is now your responsibility. And until that point, I had in the back of my head some sort of hope that it would eventually get taken care of. So that from the time he passed until now, it's been a swallowing of a pill of acceptance that I have to take care of this. So that is part of the reason why this is so hard for me, because it's also a lot of acceptance. But with that, now it's time for action. I do not feel like a victim. I do not want to feel like a victim. I merely share that story to give some sense of context, and really to help make people understand, and help myself understand, that the impact of these choices and participating in agreements without having all of the information. I think a lot of the general narrative in our country is you have to go to college. If you can't go to college, you're going to be hopeless, and you should go to the best college you can. And that is a gigantic investment, and it requires putting yourself in debt at the age of 18, which is not always the wisest choice, and is definitely not spoken about what the potential impact of that choice will be, as it was not with me. So I think having more dialogue around that issue is hugely important for young adults, for our country. Get off my high horse. So what I have done since last week to start taking steps to move forward and tackle my debt, not a ton. I'm going to be totally honest. There's a lot of resistance, so it's slow. But I did set out. I laid out my budget, and I also connected with friends in my network who are successful in the medical device field, looked at their resumes, and am committing to this week updating my resume, updating my LinkedIn to begin to explore job opportunities where I could potentially make a lot more money quickly. But for now, what's right in front of me, my expenses are, my rent is $600 a month. My transportation expense is $300 a month. My food expense is $400 a month, or $14 a day. I have a cell phone that's $68 a month, Spotify and Amazon, which are each $10 a month. So with my net income, if I can commit to and stick to that budget, which will be a challenge, especially for food, I will have a monthly surplus of $932. And reading articles online, Dave Ramsey is very popular, and other people who post videos about getting out of debt and getting out of debt quickly. The most important thing I've gleaned is to first secure $1,000 a month or $1,000 emergency fund, which with a $932,000 or with a $932 a month surplus in 1 month, I can have that secured with just a little bit of extra side hustle. I do dog sitting and dog walking on the side. I also teach yoga. So with a little bit of effort in that area in 1 month, I can have my $1,000 emergency fund, and then after that begin paying off my debts right away. And that would be 40% of my income going to debt a month, as is right now, without making any more income. And even just looking at that and realizing how, if I really focus and keep my expenses and stick to a budget, how I could make a huge dent in a very short period of time. I didn't realize that until I sat down and took a sober look at my spending and expenses over the past year. The two biggest areas where I can make the biggest cut right away: restaurant and dining. Over the past year, I had a monthly average of $330 on eating out, probably coffee as well, and entertainment, $161 a month. Those two I have so many opportunities for free entertainment, and can commit to a $14 a day budget on food. I think that's totally doable. I think that's about it for now. I also, just things that I want to explore and look at this week are looking into property management jobs, part-time property management jobs, so I could get my living expense down to zero and also be generating income. I think that would be a huge shift and potentially be able to keep my current job, but begin to explore those opportunities. Resume and LinkedIn updated, and connect with my network in the medical device field. I think those are the big things that I wanted to cover, and I'm proud of myself for just showing up and committing and creating this video last minute, and I will have it published before 5 o'clock. Namaste.